Teresa, would you give us a prayer?
Let's bow our head, please. As we gather here, Lord, thank you for giving us this opportunity as we continue to come and begin to do your work, still keeping the faith as you guide us, help us make the decisions for the community and all that's involved. In your name, we pray.
Control is Rice cereal and modeling chocolate. You highlighted each artist individually, but
Any comments from the audience? I guess we had one. Hearing none, Dr. King?
President's report. We have an enrollment update from the last meeting, and I made a copy and put it in front of you. I think Kristen, Dr. Spazzera is going to kind of give you, she's the one who put this together. So if you'll give us an update on where we are with that, I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. So we finished 8 week 2 enrollment. We actually began classes today. We do have a few schedule changes that are still happening, but that's very small. So we feel confident in saying that this is where we are. We are from this fall to last fall, we are 2.1% down. And I went ahead and included for y'all what the projected decrease and increases from several of our colleges that we compare to. You can look and see that across the state of Texas, it's showing a decrease of 1.5%. And the colleges that were showing the larger increases were your Dallas counties, your Austin community colleges, your Odessas. You can see that most of the colleges like Navarro, Kilgore, Harris, Panola are showing a decrease as well. And you can see how we're comparing to those. I will say we spent some time looking at the categories up at the top. I had a few people that had asked about the multiple locations, and we're still working on a solution to be able to break that down to where it's meaningful data. We're hoping that by the time that we do reports for the spring semester, we'll be able to give you more detail about that.
Does anybody have any questions for Dr. Spazzera or myself regarding enrollment?
Is this our county year for that next year?
It starts March 1st.
Next year?
Yeah. Okay, I also wanted to mention, and I didn't put this in the information that I provided, but the parking lot on the Terrell campus, I was there last Friday and was able to go over. They pretty much have got the front half of the parking lot at the Health Science Center. They pretty much have got the front half of the parking lot done. And I think probably that was Friday. I think probably today they were going to do the second half. So they're getting pretty close to being completed with that. We had hoped that they would get it done before the end of the month, and it looks like they probably will. So that really does, if you get a chance to drive by there, it really makes the whole Health Science Center look really, really nice. It's a really good addition to it. And Friday, they were already parking, some of the students were already parking in the front part of the parking spaces there. They do not have the lights up yet. They were getting ready to do that, I think, this week. So if you get a chance to, I took some pictures, but I didn't bring them. But I think we'll be ready to have that finished up before the end of the month. Our next regular meeting that we have scheduled is November the 22nd. And unless anybody has any questions for me, that's pretty much all I've got.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Because before y'all in your package, you had the minutes from our last meeting. Do we have any additions or corrections? Hearing none, do I hear a motion to approve? Second by Rhonda. All in favor? Okay. Business and financial reports.
We've got David, and he's eagerly awaiting to give us that information. Right, David?
Yes, sir. I've updated this a little bit since what went in your package. I'm going to correct it to what's on the screen in front of you. One of the things I want to point out is we finally have gotten most of the budgetary impact for the budget in August. One of the things we have to do is we have to clear out all the fall 2021, because some of the money we collect in August, we defer for the fall, and we have to get all that out of there before I could do the final HERF of the year, which was what we were waiting on. You'll see the deficits there. You know, we finished the year about 10.2% below on tuition and varying amounts on housing, food service, and bookstore. What I want to point out to you, and I'll get in more of this when we get to the HERF, is under the projected the $4.5 billion. That includes, among other things, but that is fall, spring, and summer projected HERF revenue for the year. It's about, excluding TDCJ, about 2.7 million in lost revenue. And as I said, I'll get before that. The personnel costs really didn't change. Nothing new there. On the second page, the one thing I do want to point out, we're still working on closing the books and getting a trial balance for the auditors. We have not recorded the bad debt expense, but I've got under the projected, I've got that for you. We believe the amount will be that or less. But the big number that everybody I know is concerned about is revenue or expenses. What we're looking at right now is 8.9 million, which is a big number. But one of the things I want to point out, and it won't happen this way every year, but David, as you and I talked, that what this does include is about $1.4 million from not this summer, but summer of 20 in HERF money. As y'all recall, the DOE couldn't make up their mind until well on into the next fiscal year. So what they allowed us to do is, in addition to this fiscal year that we just ended, that summer from that March when COVID hit till August, we were able to draw that down as a part of these financials. And so about 1.4 of that is not even from this fiscal year. So much as it would be nice, I don't think it would be $9 million every year, but it's good to have it this year. Does anybody have any questions? David, you said you got a little bit of tweak left to do, but for all practical purposes, is this pretty much what's going to look like? Yes, sir. I believe so. As I said, part of our problem was since school starts in August, we have to take some of those things and sift them into the right fiscal year. And I didn't think the DOE would think it would be very funny if I drew down revenue that they didn't decline this year. So I think other than that bad debt number, again, I think that's going to be pretty accurate. You know, audit adjustments will always happen. And if we have one of those that's substantial, I'll let you know, but we certainly don't anticipate it. Anything else? Go peek 2 pages down, I think, normally it's August 31st.
Did I get there?
So that's not very good.
Look behind you.
That's it. 27,483. As far as cash investments in the year, you can see the last quarter, that was pretty steady, more or less. The next screen is just a subset of that, the investment report. The number on here I like to point out is the 16,802,000 cap reserve. And on the next page, I want to talk about this next one in just a minute. Reconciling for the amount that we haven't transferred for the parking lot, we had 68,000 that we will transfer, but looking at the 16,734,000, if you take out what we've already transferred here, looking at the 8.9 that we just talked about, that leaves you roughly 6.9 million. So you're looking at hopefully having about $24 million of cap reserve. You know, and I won't do that until January because I have to wait on my audit and make sure there's no adjustments. But in my opinion, that's kind of what we're looking at. When will that transfer? what I like to do, Dave, is I like to wait until the audit is presented to y'all. Because if they do have audit adjustments, and one of the things Stephanie and I have asked them to do is, please give us those as you get them, because what we found in the past is sometimes they were wrong, sometimes stuff got booked in the wrong place, and so, yeah, so, you know, if I know early enough, I can do it in January, otherwise after it's presented to y'all.
It's in January.
And the next page, always gives y'all a chance to look at it, over 25,000. Oh, I think it's good.
We did, hold on. Wow. I'll get there.
There we go. We had a lot of stuff this month, just a couple of them that I'll point out. The athletic insurance, we talked about in the previous meeting, 293,000. And the buses that obviously y'all were aware of in August, we bought those and took possession of those in August. And I'll just give you all a minute to look it over, see myself and my colleague can answer anything else. Okay. Let's talk about her for a minute. And again, what I want to point out, what I'm tracking here are the last 3 doses of her money that we received. It had various names. We just called it 1, 2, and 3. They had various names and tags. What Trey is giving you here is kind of a breakdown of what we spent. This page is missing because we just calculated the summer lost revenue and the TVCJ salaries. But as of 10/11, we're at 4,111,000 as far as what we've spent and drawn down. On the next page, this is the money that's left after this. A little bit of HERF 2 money you can see there at the top. All of HERF 3. We have drawn down fall and spring, and I want to talk a minute about the last number of the summer. I talked to my staff, and what we decided to do is when we had the final numbers for the budget, we took the lost revenue between August of 19 and August of 21. When we had solid numbers, we took that difference and I adjusted the last drawdown for summer for those. And in some cases, in some of the line items, I'm talking about tuition, housing, so forth, we were under or over based on some of the entries, journal entries that we made that pertain to the whole year related to tuition or exemptions. But when the dust settled and we draw the 827, that brings us to the 2.7 million that I discussed. That is solid numbers between how we finished the year in 19 and how we were finishing the year in 21. And so we decided to do that because they let you do it by semester, but I felt a lot more comfortable truing it up at the end of the year, so to speak, so that if we ever get audited or they come in and look at us, that, you know, what I turned in is what's going to be in the audit. Again, unless we have audit adjustments, we'll just have to do that. So. And on the next page, it's kind of where we stand. And again, I want to point out that this is if we have to use all this money here. Those 4 lines that you see, and we talked about this, those of you that were on the budget committee, I kind of assumed what I thought was worst case scenario and that nothing got better this year. And so those first 4 numbers are what we assumed that we will have to use for lost revenue, tuition fees, bookstore, housing, board for this year. Also, we allowed for the loss of contact hour fund. Talk about that. So as we sit here today, assuming we don't have a second wave And we still are spending money on things like COVID tests, so it's not just lost revenue. We do have expenses. But we have everything covered through 22, 23 related to the contact hour funding, except for 958,000. I feel pretty good about that, a couple of reasons. One is we have $8.9 million, and referring you back to that first sheet, even if you take the HERF money out, just pretend like it didn't happen, you still got $4 million. And so I know that number is going to get bigger. And if we have lost revenue in 22, 23, that's another discussion. But with the way property taxes are going and the excesses that we've had, especially what we budgeted this year, I still feel pretty good about this. And I think we're doing pretty good. It's hard to predict the future, but that's kind of where we left off was with this budget. So does anybody have any questions about how we came up with that? I wish I had a crystal ball, or I did, I would have won the lottery already.
Thank you, David. We'll know more in July, June and July, when we're getting ready to do next year's budget. And we'll be able to do whatever we need to do at that time to.
The last page of this presentation is just, Phil has a committee working on this. I think a couple of more. Yeah. Just to let you know, we still have a little over $5 million of HERF-3 money on the student portion. And Philip and his group have a committee working to get that money distributed. But I just like to put that in my report. That's all I got.
Any questions? Thank you, David.
Good job.
Dr. King, discuss the Title IX annual report.
You want to go ahead and approve?
No, I'm sorry. Here, motion to approve the financial report. All in favor? No. All right, now, the Title IX annual report.
I'm going to let Janine Dotz, she put this report together, and you can kind of, it's an annual report. And we are required to provide this to the public as well as to the coordinating board. You want to kind of tell us a little bit about it, Janine?
Yeah, so this is actually just a new requirement that the legislature put forth a couple of years ago. And so we're just, it continues to be in place at this time. So basically, this is a summary report that has to be submitted. We will be doing this again in the spring, probably closer to the end of the spring, because we're supposed to be doing it twice a year. And then at the end of every year, we got to do a CEO report. And this has to be also submitted to the Higher Education Coordinating Board every year, along with a certification that Dr. King received the information. He's aware of everything. So this year we only had, so far, we've only had one report that was received under this requirement. And at the time that the report was done, it was still in progress. So there was not a conclusion. So the next time we do this, you'll see the number will be in just a different place because we have concluded that. We finalized that last week. So that will change. But it's just basically, it's just showing you, these are reports that are made by employees to the Title IX coordinator that have been investigated and have an actual Title IX concern.
I don't believe we needed approval for this. We just needed to discuss it,
Correct.
make it available, and we can,
Correct.
anybody has any questions, answer any questions anybody may have. Thank you, Janine. We can move on.
Move on, Dr. King, why don't we talk about the Kaufman Regional Network?
Okay, I think probably everybody got one of these in the mail. When you got your packet. This is the TBCC Kaufman Regional Workforce Center. And hopefully you've had a chance to look through there. I think Dr. Spazera and Kelly Townsend and a few others helped put this together for me, basically. We've been talking about a Kaufman Regional Workforce Center for a while. And I think we would like to bring it to you guys, bring it to the board and let the board give us some direction and guidance for that. The fact is that we have a great facility in Terrell for academic programs, the Terrell campus. We have about 2,000 students under normal circumstances, pre-COVID there. It's basically transfer. It's for students to go to college and get transfer classes and move on to get a degree somewhere else. It does have a cosmetology program on that campus, but that's basically the only workforce program that we have. And as you know, we have a wonderful, really good health science center available now in Terrell that was moved from Kaufman. And so we got those things covered. We got health science covered, and we got all of the areas in health science covered. And then we have the academic programs covered. But what we don't have in Kaufman County is workforce. We don't have the workforce programs that we need to have. And we know that it's a need. There's a big demand now for workforce programs all over. These are, you can again go through your book here, you can see the different types of programs that we're talking about, but we feel like there's an opportunity for us to meet the demand and the need in Kaufman County. This wouldn't just be for Kaufman County, although it would be in Kaufman County. It would also be for Henderson County, especially the Kent, Cedar Creek Lake area. But we're talking about putting in programs that we do not have on the Athens campus. Even some of the programs we do not have. So we just feel very strongly that the need is there. It's time for us to move forward. I feel like we're not doing as a college what we should be doing in terms of workforce programs, and I think we need to move that direction. If you just quickly, if you want to look, I think you got a chance hopefully to see the tab where it talks about the regional workforce center need assessment. I think they did a really good job of working with the workforce board there to be able to determine what areas are in the greatest demand. And as you can see there on page 11, the construction industry has the greatest demand. And so what we're wanting to do in this workforce center and offer the workforce programs primarily in construction and in trades type programs. On the next page, it talks about also occupation and different types of opportunities. Oh, by the way, we've been meeting with the Chamber of Commerce. We've been meeting with Economic Development Corporation, the Kaufman Economic Development Corporation, and others over the last few months to all give us some direction in terms of what kind of programs they'd like for us to have. As a matter of fact, we met with them this morning at 9 o'clock and talked to them as well about the possibilities of what they need and what we possibly can do for them. I won't go through all this. Hopefully you've had a time to look at it. The opportunity is here. We have 105 acres of property that Arlton White was good enough to donate to us. It's in the city limits now. It wasn't when we initially were donated the property, but it is now on Highway 175 between where the detention center is and where the courthouse is being built in Fair Road. Most of you have seen that property. Again, this is just me just saying at this time, one consideration could be to take a portion of that property, especially the property that's down by Fair Road. There's 30 acres, 30 acres down there, and take that property and use it for this type of facility. And then, do whatever we want to with the rest of it. I know we've got a couple of buyers that are already out there asking us about the other property, and we'll be talking about that a little bit later on. But you can see the map that is also included in here. And in this map, you see on the white, portion there is where we're talking about the possibility of putting a facility. And you see the rest of it is up in this particular areas around where the detention center and the courthouse is. That's one location. There may be others, but that's the location that we know is available and it's ours. Some of the proposed programs that we're looking at. Also, you can see that tab again. We're looking at building trades. We're looking at which would be working with carpentry and floor systems and roof systems and cabinet making and those sort of things. We feel like there's a big demand there. Electrical trades, a big demand there. On the next page, these are programs that could be a certificate program or an associate degree program. HVAC is another one that we see and they see as big opportunities. Plumbing, I don't know if you guys have hired a plumber lately. They're in pretty high demand and they're pretty good occupation to be into right now, but there's an opportunity there for plumbing as a program that we might consider. And then last on this list is not the last one that we're looking at, but truck driving. We're going to be offering a program. We're already offering a program in truck driving. It will start when, Kelly?
November 8th.
November the 8th, our truck driving program is starting at the former Health Science Center, which we call it the
Correct.
Workforce Center now. And that we believe that program is going to be full. And Kelly has already gotten approval from the North Central Workforce Board for them to pay for tuition and fees for that program. And so that's already there. We're already doing that. We've already got the truck and we're ready to go with that. So that's going to be a big demand as well. But we're also talking about welding as a possibility, and logistics was another one that there's a lot of warehouses in the Terrell and Forney area, and even some in the Kaufman area. There's a possibility of needing something in that particular area. So again, these are just things that we looked at, possibilities. I just wanted you to know what they were, what the possibilities may be. Just looking at what our demand is, we could probably put in 8 to 10 programs and they would be full pretty much. But right now we're looking at the possibility of 6 programs. We may decide we would like to have more, depending upon the details of and the cost of the facility. We're looking at probably somewhere around a 50 to 60,000 square foot facility. Based on what we've been told, we're probably looking at somewhere between $20 and $25 million facility. I'd like for you to look over at the financial projections that were provided, also for you in terms of state appropriations and contact or tuition and fee revenue. This obviously does not include property tax revenue. But if you look at these projections that we have, and they did a very good job of putting this together as well, and I think David and his staff had a hand in this as well. We're looking at the possibility of the first year of putting programs in somewhere in the ballpark of $491,000 revenue less expensive. Year 2, $466,000. The total for year 1 and year 2 of $957,000 revenue. What we're asking, I also wanted to mention that I've also met with the superintendent, Lori Blaylock. I met with her this morning. I met with her last Friday as well. And they're very, very much interested in us doing dual credit for Kaufman High School as well. And so we're trying to work some opportunities for dual credit into this, as well as meeting the regional needs. She understands that the purpose of this program, if we're able to do it, is to meet the regional needs, but she'd also like for us to do some dual credit programs with them there as well. And hopefully we can work through that. What we're asking the board is for us to take this first step to be able to put together a proposal with an architect, much like what we did the Health Science Center. If you remember, our first step with that was to put together a proposal that gave us more definite details on the cost of the facility, what was needed in the facility, and work through those kind of details, which we don't have now. So we don't know how much that is going to cost. We had talked to an architect earlier in the summer, and he mentioned at that time somewhere around the $50,000 range to put together a proposal to determine whether or not we want to take the second step. I have no idea if that's what we're talking about, but that's what was discussed earlier in the year, actually late in last year. So again, we're not asking for you to approve to do it. We're just asking for you to approve to take that first step to put together a proposal that we can bring back to you in months, 2 months, probably 3 months down the road where you can take a second look at it and determine whether or not it's something that we want to go forward with. I don't want to spend any money. I know that I don't want to spend any money to put anything together unless I have your support to move forward. And that's basically what I'm asking for, is the support to move forward with a proposal to bring to you back with more details and more information. So let me answer any questions. I've talked too much.
Dr. King, you mentioned this was one alternative. What other alternatives have been considered?
The building, you talked about the building.
To get a workforce program in place?
There are no other alternatives. I didn't mean to say that there were. I mean, we're going to either have to lease a building, purchase a building, or build a building. And we've been looking for at least opportunity to lease in Kaufman for a while, and that's just not there. So this is what we consider to be alternative.
Well, let me express, I assume that we will have a lot of additional conversation. I would note that it does appear that this has gone on for quite a while, down to engaging with architect. I don't know on what terms.
We haven't engaged an architect.
Well, there's quite a bit of material provided around the sky, and I assume that's also where that $25 million number came from. So.
Not really. I think it came from David Graham.
Yeah, I'm just simply saying that as far as I know, your board is way behind the curve, other than having workforce mentioned, at various times.
I provided you almost the same information this summer during the budget workshop.
Well, I would disagree. We did not talk about a number. We simply talked about, we're working on some things, we're talking about some things in Kaufman. We'll more on that later.
Okay, right.
That's
where we are.
I recall.
That's
The
right.
Enbridge there, so I
Right.
maybe I heard you wrong. So I'll stand on that. That's
Okay.
what we're talking about. I'm just simply saying that as it has come to hand, don't think the second of them, certainly, if your board has known much about it.
Well, that's what we're trying to do today. We're trying to give you that information so
Well,
that you'll.
I understand,
Okay.
but it's also helpful to kind of come along with you.
That's what we're doing. We're wanting you to come along with us.
Yeah, but you also mentioned late last year, so I'll leave that for a moment.
Okay.
That's how it's worked. You're happy with it. I guess, some of us will resolve to accept it that way, whether we fully agree with it or not. Now, that said, $25 million price tag for a single facility to me is phenomenal. It's mind-boggling. That equates to some equipment. I don't know what we're talking about for these particular skill sets. It's $500 a square foot. That's not a workforce facility. That's Taj Mahal.
Yeah, those numbers are just total estimates.
Architects are pretty good based on what they're hearing you tell them. It gets you in the ballpark. They're pretty good. And Randall Scott certainly is. He's well qualified to do that. Anyway, that's the number that's in front of us. And I would just have to say that concerns me a lot for a program that there would be essentially brand new to us. And, my notion of workforce would be what we have, I think, systematically and successfully implemented here, and that is to kind of grow it from the ground up, meaning you don't start on top, you start somewhere further down, you invest in what it takes to get rolling, and then you build it based on what you see happen. So I certainly support workforce. I think that probably is one of the very best opportunities for community college to meet a wonderful mission. So I celebrate the fact that you're looking at it. But I would say, and I'm just one, I'll never get close to 25 million to go and start, to just say, let's just go all in.
Yeah, that's not what we're doing.
But that's just where I am.
I don't really
Fair to
understand
make
this.
that
I
mistake.
don't understand that's why you are. I mean, we're just throwing numbers out. That's the whole purpose of doing the proposal, is to get a more definite number.
Well, I'm just reacting to what you provided, and that's the number that was provided.
Wasn't it 20 to 25 million? Isn't that what it said in here? 20 to 25 million. It was 20 to 25 million is what the number was.
Okay, well, maybe you can point it out, because I got this package on Thursday, so perhaps I haven't studied as much as
These
you
were-
guys.
And these were estimates based on Kelly and I doing the research on a lot of it and working with David Graham. They were not from Randall Scott or from an architect, so we probably shot high.
Well, maybe they are, maybe they're not. You know, I don't know. I'm simply saying that's what was provided. So I would like to see the pursuit of workforce programs, but on a scale that is much more similar to what we've done in the past. And let's prove it up before we invest that much money, you know, on the ground, and then have that to support if we're not pleased with the outcome. You know, feasibility studies. Who does a feasibility study on workforce programs? Are there measurements can be taken? Yes, I get that. And I also think that they have certain value. But ultimately, the feasibility is going to be determined around this table here. And I would just encourage that you take us along with you as we go. And if there is a notion that this is the only way to go, that all of us are not going to be okay with that. All it takes is majority, and then we all get on board. But I believe that we should look to something that could allow us to enter workforce programs in the Kaufman County area and do a good job of it, but to grow into something that might be grander later on. You know what we did in Palestine, an existing program, and that was a retail center or an old retail center. Cost $400,000 to go into that. I know you were very involved in getting that put in place.
Well, the recommendation is to select board members to serve on a committee
I understand.
with TVCC employees to conduct the feasibility study.
I
So,
understand.
Okay. So what we were hoping to be able to do is to find maybe the board members that are closest to Kaufman, the Kaufman area, or whoever wanted to be involved in helping us go through this process.
Well, can I
Sure.
address the things that David said? You know, we're starting on the suggestion of 6 programs. I would say 6 programs is a real low bottom of the ball game start of this. We're not suggesting 12, 24 programs, 6 programs to start this. Let me say this. This was broached in July, I think, at the budget meeting. And I can say that just about the same information that we've received tonight is what we talked about, Steve, you and I, and the faculty budget meeting. So this has been discussed. This is not a new topic of discussion for some of this board, maybe not all the board, but some of the board. Secondly, Randall Scott's name was evoked several times in there, and nobody's ever mentioned Randall Scott's name yet. I mean, I'm talking about within this project, because I don't know that Randall Scott will be involved in this project, will it?
No, that's something that will be determined in the future.
Just reading off the page.
And we did have
We
a
got some
document
information from
Randall.
Randall. He helped put some information together, but he was not.
Initially, this is before.
Yeah, this was
other
back in
issues.
July or June or July when we were talking about it.
I'm just seeing it.
Yeah.
I realize there is other members of this board that's going to look at this and vote on this, but this is just the beginning steps. I think all that Dr. King is suggesting is we want to pursue this project. And he's looking for the ability to do that, to pursue this project so we can get real numbers to present to this board. Because really, until we present this project to an architect, everything we're going to suggest is going to be an estimate. We're not going to be accurate. And so to offer up a suggestion of starting this process, I think it'd be very, very important. You know, our increased tax base alone in Coffin County, I think was $2 million this year. We've got $1 million worth of property that are sitting there that we're not doing anything with it. I don't know that we can just walk away and ignore a county that is doing so much for Trinity Valley. Between Terrell, between the Health Science Center, the increased tax base, they're doing a tremendous amount. The school district is wanting to work with us. The Chamber of Commerce is wanting to work with us. Foundations are wanting to work with us. And I think we at least have to make steps to see what this project's going to cost. And I think that's really the only suggestion that's been made tonight. Not that we're going to build anything or do anything. We just want to see where we're going from this next step. And we can flitter around in here for months and pass this information around, and we're not going to accomplish anything. And I would suggest that we approve this so we can start this process and will allow the board to have real information to make a really a good decision off of based on the future.
In determining the building layout, what specifications were you working off of? Was it just a big building, is kind of a shell of a building, or ceiling heights? I mean, what did
We
you
were
have?
talking about basically starting with a metal building, and then we worked with, actually it was one of Donnie's students, I think it was, that helped us. We basically told him how many different classrooms we wanted, office space, and one of our TVCC students drew out the floor plan for us. And then we used a lot of the information. David Graham was very helpful in sitting down with us, and David Hopkins, of course. And we looked at the information from the Health Science Center and tried to compare, because it's a similar size building, try to use that to help us estimate what some of the costs might be. But again, it was estimates. But I do believe, I want to just say, I mean, our whole intention of this was to bring forward to the board to ask y'all to work with us on these next steps to move forward.
I think the notion of workforce is great, and I said that was central to my comments. I'm simply suggesting that we look at all options.
Okay.
And not get focused on this particular one. Otherwise, we're sort of setting a path, and then we're allowing ourselves to just trail down in that one direction. And I would just like to see that we open that to all considerations and construction types, et cetera. Now, you mentioned a comparison with the Health Science Center and a metal building, basically. I think you said that too. They're not even close. So the number would be dramatically different.
Absolutely.
And that's great.
Mhm.
I'm all for looking at that. But in fairness, in the way of disclosure, I'm not for looking at a 20 to 25 million on something that we don't even have our foot in the door, so to speak, as far as having money in there. Simply saying, let's look at all options and hopefully one that is much more cost effective, which I gather that's what everyone wants to achieve. We all want to get in there. So there's no resistance to that. No argument to be made in that direction, but not necessarily just what we're looking at in front of us here.
Well, again, what we're asking is for a board committee that could work together to help us move forward in whatever direction that you choose to go. I mean, we're not making decisions tonight. about anything other than a board
In
committee.
that regard, I would then suggest that we accommodate presence of our chairman and also Dr. Reisinger, who's not with us tonight. You know, this is not something that's gonna come apart, you know, next week. And yet I do understand that the sooner you get moving, the better. I appreciate that, but I would like to respect those. And to that matter, I'm not saying the board can't, but the chair appoints anyway. And then some feedback to be added to those that would like to be a part of it. And, you know, hopefully that can be worked out as well.
So what's your, maybe I missed it, David, what's your resistance on just forming a committee? Go ahead and start.
There is none.
Well, you brought up the fact that Charlie was gone and Ray's gone.
Just that.
Uh,
Have them in the room.
So what happens next month when we have this discussion and Jerry's gone and Ron's gone? I mean, how long will we run this pony down the trail? I mean, decisions need to be made, and I'm sorry that somebody's not here, and I'm not trying to disqualify them. I'd love to put them on the committee, both of them. But I don't know that we can just continue to move from month to month to month to month to month based on somebody not being here.
Your point's well taken, Mike, and I do agree that in practical terms, there is a limit, but on the other hand, we don't intend to have that many absences. Probably the first meeting Ray's ever had. But just like it better when everyone's, you know, here for the conversation, and when we can, just respecting that.
I can send something out asking for volunteers, if that would be acceptable. We can only have 4, of course, because of the quorum requirements. But in my opinion, at least, you want people that are in
How
call.
about this? And maybe, you know, Mike would be comfortable with that and interested in advancing, which I kind of like that too. To ask the chair to visit with each of the members.
Okay.
See who would just say, I'll raise my hand,
Okay.
and who doesn't really want to, and, you know, then it's kind of his call.
So really, he just needs to talk to 2 people or 1 person, Charlie,
He really needs.
because the rest of us are sitting here.
We are, but we're not being appointed or asked to consider appointment, I don't think. So.
Are we being asked to consider an appointment for a committee tonight?
It does, I mean, again, the recommendation was to select board members to serve on a committee. And if we have people that are interested in serving on a committee, that'd be great. If we don't, we can, you know, we can send out something, or the board chairman can ask people. And then the next time, we would, in the next week. Either way, it doesn't matter to me.
Well, I think I heard you right. You're asking for a committee to present an analysis of a proposal, whether or not we can move forward with our finding,
Yes,
with the feasibility study. Now,
Yes.
it may be that we can,
I'm totally in agreement with that.
or it may be that we find that we can move forward. All we're doing is fact finding.
That's right.
Whether it's good, bad, ugly, or indifferent, we're trying to find facts of what's going to be best for the bigger scope of what I heard.
I agree. I get that, I agree.
I think the importance is to study all aspects of this,
Right.
not just a brand new building. I agree with you,
Yes.
trustee Monk, that $500 a square foot seems to be a little high for a facility for workforce.
Yeah.
But also I agree with trustee Henry in the fact that I feel like this is needed, particularly in Kaufman County, and we need to look very hard at this. And I'd make a motion from the floor here that we actually study setting up a committee, and we ask Chairman Raymond, when he gets better, to interview everyone and come back and vote on it next meeting. But I think we shouldn't wait. I don't think we should wait any longer than that to decide on this because it is an important issue. I feel like it's something that it's doing what we're supposed to do if we're going to run a community college. And it's the very essence of what we're doing. And so, I mean, to turn our back on it is, and dilly-dally, that's not a good thing either. So I'd make a motion, that we set up a committee and then we ask President Raymond to interview the trustees and we'll have a committee, motion to form a committee at the next meeting.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Uh,
All right.
Good, thank you very much. That's exactly what we needed. Took us a while to get there.
All right, let's see, the next is the Northwest Dorm renovation.
Again, this is something we've been talking about. We did talk about this again this last summer in our board budget committee meetings, and I know that the dorm has been discussed previously. We did have a committee of 3 members, and it was, they met once or twice, once over at the Northwest Dorm, and discussed different options and different alternatives that we may have with that. We were able to go out and get some bids, not bids, I'm sorry, some quotes on the cost of doing the renovation that we, I think the committee had talked about doing. Those quotes are included in your packet. It's our recommendation, again, that we take the first step of hiring an architect, and we have the architect designated in our proposal to move forward and be able to do the renovations and improvements to Northwest Dorm. Those are all discussed in the proposal that we provided earlier. The cost, again, the cost that was provided to us in the quotes was between $1.4 million and $2.5 million. That's the cost of the renovation. That's the quotes to the renovation. The estimates is what it would be. The fee for putting this proposal first step together to see what needs to be done, how much it would cost to provide the details. I think it was EMA, which is an engineering firm out of architectural engineering firm out of Tyler, was the consulting firm that we felt like we wanted to go with. Their cost was going to be, for their services, was going to be not more than $88,500. We budgeted in the budget this year $390,000 for improvements for Northwest Dorm. So we wanted you to be aware of that as well. And I talked to the committee about that, I think. We want to take that Northwest Dorm and we want to make it look like a brand new facility. We want to do to Northwest Dorm like we did with Northeast Dorm a couple of years ago. And it took us a couple of years to get there, but we did. And we wanted to do with it what we did, something similar to the Health Science Center. The facility was built in 1985, I believe, 86. And we really haven't done a lot to that up until this last year or two. We were planning on doing the renovations that we needed to be done over a 2 or 3 year period of time in phases. And that's why we put $390,000 in the budget this year, is to phase in some of the work to be done. But we just think that now's the time to go ahead and do what needs to be done and renovate the facility and make it like a facility that we can be proud of. Now, the committee members, do y'all have anything you'd like to add to that?
I mean, the work needs to be done, but I'd like to ask one question.
Okay.
We'll go back to this year's budget. And we didn't talk about this today. Where did we get the numbers for the 390?
Well, we were looking at either taking care of the HVAC problem or taking care of the water issues that we're having, mold issues that we were having. And we felt like that would take care of one of those issues that we were having. And then that we would come back the following year, next year, and then we would put more money in the budget to do whatever we needed to do from there.
But basically it was keeping the same No new lighting, no new
No.
plumbing fixtures, no new showers. And this includes all of that.
That's correct. This includes all of that. I also was provided, I think David and his staff, Jennifer put together a financial pro forma that gives you an analysis of hopefully you had a chance to look at that, and they did a great job with it. David, did you have anything else that you wanted to add regarding the pro forma?
No, I just, but as we discussed, the numbers that you can see at the top, we did not use COVID era numbers. We tried to use sort of more realistic, normal numbers that would be in the dorms. And we've got the dates, the fall of 19, spring of 20, and summer of 19 are the occupancies that we used. Of course, we can put in there whatever y'all want. I just felt like because what you were looking at in the pro forma that you were doing, if I gave you once in a lifetime numbers, that wasn't gonna do you any good. I was trying to give you something more realistic.
One of the, I think the occupancy rate that you used was, I'm trying to find it in here.
It's on the screen.
80%.
80%. Oh, it's on the screen. 80%.
If you do some calculations on this, as you know, last time we did this, I was pretty much all into this, but the break, it's not, in public, out in the public, you'd be trying to figure out what kind of rate of return is that. It's not a very good rate of return, given these numbers and how much we're investing. However, I'm more concerned about break-even ratios and these units standing alone in terms of cash flow enough. I mean, we're providing those as a service, but they shouldn't go broke. And according to my calculations, it's 76% is where occupancy is where our break-even point is at this. Given these numbers, and I think some of the numbers may be perhaps figured on the high side, but some of the expenses that are itemized here. However, at least, and in the past, this dorm was either breaking even or making a little bit, as opposed to South and West Hall. So I think from the cash flow perspective, I'm always looking to make sure it's paying for itself, because we do get contact hours, which is with my students here, and that's a benefit, but it needs to stand alone, and I think this does with these numbers.
Well, Steve, one thing I will say, a lot of these, not every building on campus is metered, so a lot of these costs are allocated based on the budget. For example, some things we know exactly what is for Northwest Dorm. Other things we have to allocate it based on square footage, insurance, things of that nature. So that's, probably with any set of buildings that's been around, unless you have every single cost isolated, you just don't.
Well, I'd rather figure it high than I would figure it low.
That's why we use budget numbers for the most part, based on.
These salary numbers or personnel numbers are higher than we've had in the past.
Yeah, the personnel numbers is my main concern. I mean, we have one guy, family living there with two people overseeing it.
Well, we also allocated the director's salary.
Which we hadn't done in the past.
And you've got someone you're paying full-time to be the director of housing. I allocated his salary, over all the dorms, 20%. But I can pull out anything you want, but I just think.
Well, no, I guess it should be.
That's a cost. And I will say that, all the people that were here when the last time this was done, they're all gone. So Jennifer and I are kind of trying to find the breadcrumbs and kind of change the philosophy. And that was probably one of them. But I just don't see how your director of housing doesn't factor into that. No,
he does. Well, I appreciate your numbers.
And I think Jennifer said that once we kind of get stuff ready for the auditor, we intend to present you with the whole thing. Now we've done this one. Some of it's just allocating the cost of the other dorms.
And this number doesn't take into account any increased rentals if it's improved a little bit, does it?
No, I wouldn't know how
you just it's a flat rental, what we're getting now.
Historical.
Yeah.
No price increases, no increased occupancy, I think we've got what 100% occupancy is on here, but we haven't been at that. Of course, you've got some coaches living in there too. So.
So to sum up, we'll be going through replacing everything, toilets, lighting, shower fixtures.
Counters, showers,
Fixing the AC ventilation situation.
In this case, we're talking about a central central system. You know, we talked about the difference between a central system and an individual unit system. We're talking about a central system here. And, you know, you probably could make it work with an individual unit system like we have now, but it obviously would not be the best scenario. So that's something that we can consider the next time we get together hopefully in November, and we can look at the cost, the detailed cost, and make some decisions about how we want to handle the HVAC at that time. I think we all believe a central system is going to be the best. No question about it, but it's also going to be quite a bit more expensive.
Board, one of the things, if we get to that point, that I would recommend is that if we go with the big project, is that we take it all out of cap reserve instead of trying to piecemeal and keep up with it out of the operating budget. That if we do the whole thing, we take it out of cap reserve, because whatever you don't spend out of the operating budget is going to go to cap reserve anyway. Rather than trying to say, well, we're going to take 3 air conditioners out of operating budget, 2 out of the cap reserve, and just trying to keep up with the cost. But I'll do whatever y'all want. That's just my recommendation.
Well, this is more than a repair job. This is a capital project. I don't see how you wouldn't use it on capital.
No, you're going to take most of it out of there. But that's why I'm saying, don't split it up. Let's just do it one way or the other. If we decide to do the whole thing.
What we're asking the board again tonight to do is to let us take this first step with the architect, and you see the services that are going to provide in the handout that we provided, and then hopefully in November board meeting we can come back with the proposal that the architect has put together as to the definite cost of each one of these things that we're talking about, and then we can move forward with it at that point. If they cannot get this information together by November, the November board meeting, we would need to have a December board meeting.
And the goal, if we go this route, you're trying to get it open before September 1 in the next fall?
We'd like to get it open by July, middle of July, for the football players to come in and use. However, they could do what they're doing now. We could spread them out among, it's not the best scenario, but if it came down to it and we had to, we could spread them out into different dorms, because the dorms aren't open primarily until the beginning of the fall semester. And we could, we would have until the end of August, if that's what we did. Everybody knows construction is delayed, it's long, you can't predict, when they're going to show up or whatever, but we would definitely want to have this done by the beginning of the fall semester.
But would that be contingent, again, on the amount of students that we have? Because we've got 300 beds now, and we're about max capacity at this point.
We are.
And so if we pushed into the end of August, we're pushing into that school year where these dorms are full.
We don't want to push into the new school year, that's for sure.
So
Yeah, it would need to be before.
July would be the goal.
Well, the school year starts August the 25th or 22nd or something like that. So it would need to be maybe a couple of weeks before that. And there's not really that many new students that come in until the week before the beginning of the fall semester. So I would like to have it done by July, second 6 weeks of the summer is really what we'd like to have it done.
Football comes in the middle of July, is that right?
They do. They didn't this year. They came in August 1st this year. And I don't know what they're going to do next year, but it could be August 1st. Would be my guess.
Obviously, time is the essence.
Time is of the essence, and that's why I'm saying if we can't get this done, the architect can't get this information to us by the November board meeting, I would recommend we have a December board meeting to approve whatever or not approve whatever we're going to do with it, so that we could get started on before the Christmas holidays.
Dr. King?
Yes.
For the sake of my own understanding, I recall almost everything you talked about on the first part, that we talked about a multi-year plan and we budgeted $390 for this year and that. I also recall that Trustee Embry expressed concern about the whole of it.
Right.
It's a mess.
Way to put it.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm just curious that significant shift from a systematic multi-year plan, spending $390, which put in the budget. The rest of this is not. So that's where we come back and talk about the cap reserve. I'm actually okay with this, but I'd just like to understand what occurred to go from, forget that, let's do the whole ball of wax. I'm not arguing it, maybe
Right.
that's time. I kind of respect, some of you guys and Mike, actually, even your observations with regard to that. So I'm not taking issue with it.
Right.
I just wanted to understand, because that's a really, really big switch out from $390 in a budget to $2.5 million or whatever.
The length of time that it takes to do these projects was a factor. To do the HVAC project that we're talking about, you're probably taking 6 months, 5 to 6 months. We hope that we can get it done in that period of time. And so we had to close the door. To get anything done, if we're going to get it done this year, we had to close the door to be able to do whatever needed
And
to
that
be
was
done.
the $390.
Pardon?
And that was $390. Was going to do that.
No, the 390 was going to leave he was going to try to do it next summer.
Okay.
We were going to try to do it next summer. We were going to try to do something. That's how we do things here. We do things in 3 or 4 years. That's how we did the dorm across the street. But in this case, it was just going to take too long to do the HVAC system. And we either have to do it now, or I don't think you can do it in 3 months in the summer.
That's good
Yeah,
enough. I'm
okay.
fine with that. I just wanted to understand it.
That was the
That's-
idea.
That's a big shift.
And one thing from, Dave, this was the biggest question I had, and I'm for really looking in this project, but we've gone from $400,000 in 2 years, $800,000 total to $1.5 million to $2 million. But so I've had people contact me about the condition of that dorm. I mean, what did one parent tell you?
They told me that they would not allow their son to live in that facility.
Well, I won't quote it. That's pretty much what Rusty had.
That's right, back in January, didn't I?
It-
And I've had the same thing, Steve, where a parent would come up and said, I'm not gonna allow my child to stay in here, and wouldn't even let him stay, took him back home with him.
It needs to be done. I understand it's going to cost money to do this, but this is a 25-year project. And we haven't spent very much money in this facility since 1985. We spent a little bit the last couple of years trying to improve it. We painted it. We've done some things. We fixed the stairs. We've done some things with it. We were going to do some things this year, but in my opinion, it's time to bite the bullet and do what needs to get done and get it done and finish it out.
And I guess this proposal will reflect the difference in AC costs too. What is it, about $600,000 difference?
Probably $500,000 difference. We were looking at maybe $100,000 to put AC units in, about $1,400 per room, and there's 50 rooms. And we were looking at around $500,000 to put an AC central unit in. So we need to evaluate that. And that's something we need to do as well. We would prefer the central unit. I think everybody would prefer that, but we can evaluate that when the time comes.
So do we hear any more discussion or a motion? What's the board's pleasure?
I move we proceed.
All in favor? No.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Okay, next item, bridge construction.
We have a bridge that's on I guess that's the west side of campus that is, we've had problems with. We've actually had to close it and where you can't use it because there's problems with where it's eroding on both sides of it. And we need to fix it. And we have the bridge over here that you see when you walk, and it's in good shape. We need this one to be in good shape like that. We're not talking about replacing the bridge. We're talking about replacing the soil and the area around the bridge
In the
and the foundation and footing. And so that's what the cost is. And we've had French's looking at it for us, helping us make some decisions. And it's going to cost $126,796. And then the project oversight by the architect was going to be $6,000. So the cost to do what we need to do is $133,000. And it is in the budget. We put it in the budget.
And that's not a new bridge
No, that's a new bridge would cost $500,000.
or pedestrian bridge.
I don't make them. I just,
How much traffic does he get?
we get a lot of traffic with the band, and we're gonna get a lot more traffic with the soccer team because they're on the hill up there, going down to the soccer fields. And that's one of the reasons why we want to have it done. And it's dangerous now. You either have to take it down. I asked the same question, do we really need it? And we really do.
It connects straight to the band hall, doesn't it?
It the band hall and the soccer field soccer players will come down from their facility up there.
It's that or putting him in the street.
They come down the street and go across, which is not a good thing.
Move we continue with the renovation, repairs on the bridge.
There's a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, let's see, Board of Trustees, roles and responsibilities, manual update.
Okay, I think I sent all of you a copy of the proposals and the different revisions that had been proposed for the trustee manual. I also put this in front of you. This is the major changes or major proposed changes that we are looking at. And if you'd like to, I can very quickly go through this with you. We're not asking for this to be adopted today, but we're asking for you to consider this, discuss it if you'd like to, and then come back next November board meeting. And if no one has any objections, that we'll put this in final format at that board meeting and let you approve it at that time. If you have that with you, if you'll go to page, by the way, if you look through here, there are some changes in here and they're in red, but most of those changes were just wording changes, different types of verbiage that we changed in some way. And you certainly look at that as well, but the big changes, if you'll go to page 9, number 6 on page 9, talks about newly elected board members or appointed board member training. And there's a whole list of things that we have requested that a new board member do over a 3-day period of time. And you can see day 1 there, you can see day 2 there, and you can see day 3 there. And that's obviously a recommended change. We've had some sort of informal sort of things that we've done in the past with the past new board members that we've had, either appointed or elected, but this makes it more formal, puts it together in a format that we believe will be beneficial for those new board members to get started in a good way. Also on that same page is current board member training, and that's number 7. And we are proposing that you could call this whatever you want. We call it professional development, and that's what we do as a faculty and staff. We're required to do faculty development every year, and this would be professional development in your case, training if you want to call it. But each board member will either attend a state conference, a national conference, or complete 12 hours of CE training, which can be done online. The next proposal is on page 10. And these are board committees. And we're recommending that there be 3 new board committees that would be, we would start. That would be a budget committee, which we really already have, a facilities committee, and a strategic planning committee. Then, of course, we can appoint, the chairman can appoint other committees as needed, but those would be standing committees. We'd have a standing budget committee, and we'd have 3 or 4 board members that would be on that committee, facilities committee, and strategic plan committee. There would be, each board member would be on a committee, one of those committees. Then if you'll turn to page 11, which is the next page, well, we really didn't make a lot of changes there. If you look at plan of succession, we deleted that section with the idea that there would probably be some mechanism for the Board of Trustees to vote. If there comes a time when there's a need for succession for board chairman, vice president, et cetera, somebody, we would have a vote instead of the way it's proposed here. And again, you can have discussion and we can talk about that, but that's basically what was proposed. Board vacancies has not really changed any. We did get a clarification on that from Lee Porter that we would do, when you have a board vacancy, the board has to appoint the new board member. And that new board member serves on the board until their tenure and time is up. And then they can run for re-election. So for example, if somebody, say Ray, were to need to resign from the board for some reason, we would appoint him, his replacement, and it would be 2024, I believe, that person would serve to, and then they would run. That's really not our choice. That's the legal method of doing that. It didn't sound right to me, and Lee's confirmed it with me twice. I would think that you could have a special election, but you can't. Then go down to page 12. We talked about removal of board members, and there is something that was included in here, and we need to have that discussion, or you need to let me know if you have any discussion. And that's in the middle of the page. It is ground for removal of a member of the Board of Trustees of a junior college district that the member is absent from more than 2 of the regularly scheduled board meetings that the member is eligible to attend during a calendar year, not counting an absence for which the member is excused for a majority vote of the board or medical reasons.
So if someone's involved with 2 or 3 committees and out here half the time, but he or she misses 3 meetings, they're eligible to be thrown off the board?
As it is now, it's 6 meetings. 5 meetings. And so they've changed it from 5 to 2, or that was a recommendation to change it to 5 to 2.
Well, I don't know. I mean, have we got a problem with people being absent? Not doing.
We're talking about at the regular board meeting.
I know,
Yeah.
that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, tonight, Dr. Charlie's had a conflict at another board meeting.
Right.
Yeah, and I think 2 is a little excessive.
I'm open for
But
whatever.
this also says that they can be excused by a vote of the board. And so Charlie's absence tonight could be excused by a vote right here.
Again, this is your decision, not mine. This is your bylaw. This is your roles and responsibilities, not mine. And so I'm open, and I gave everybody an opportunity already once to provide input. This is another opportunity that you have to provide input, and before we, and it doesn't have to be done in November. It could be, January, whatever.
I think when it is,
Open for questions and all that, or you can finish some more.
Well, you can look here, and these are the changes. These are the major changes.
I have one.
Okay.
The question, and again, of curiosity, what brings this to the top? And who, you said we, or the recommendation was a reference, whose recommendations are these?
I asked for board member recommendations back at the last meeting,
Okay.
and I got recommendations from one board member.
I was on the
Right.
Zoom call. So.
Right. And I think I sent this out to everyone, and I mentioned to everyone that we had a deadline. I think it was, I forgot what it was.
August 13th.
October the 11th.
Something, there was some time, and I said, we're gonna go with what we got here, and then you could give you another shot at looking at it again. And so we're not trying to dictate anything to anybody. We're just trying to get input.
Okay, that was just a question of curiosity. There's a lot of good things, no real issue with that. But to say this, that state statute determines how and under what circumstances, community college board member serves and not the board.
No.
So how do we square having, whatever we're gonna call this, a trustees manual that may be inconsistent with state statute?
It's not inconsistent with
Is
state
that
statute.
your conviction or?
It's
your-
my conviction. It's not inconsistent with state. Now, there are additions to state statute that are here, like the 12 hours of professional development. That's not in state statute anymore, but that's a local decision. Every community college has their own board of trustees meeting. And you can put in it whatever you want to put in it. Now, there are SAC CLC requirements, and there are state statute requirements, like the training that you're required to do as a new board member. That's state statute. So you can do whatever you want to do, whatever.
No, I'm not trying to make an argument. I'm actually trying to verify facts, because I have a bit of a hard time squaring that the statute very specifically and expressly states what is required for you to be elected to a board at a community college.
That's true, and that's not changed.
Pardon?
That's not changed. That's in
I
here.
understand,
Right.
but what I'm saying is that absent something that empowers a local board to do a particular thing, are we saying we can do anything we want to unless the statute says we can't?
Yeah.
Or does the statute in fact tell you what you can do, and that imposes that limitation? That's what I'm trying to be clear about, because aside from how others may feel about a particular point, that we're certain that we are not creating policies, if you will, however well-intended they might be, that don't square with statute. And I have a bit of trouble with that. If the board says that you can be elected to this board if you're this, this, and this, and you've lived here this long, and that you can be removed for these reasons, I just have a problem with being able to say, except for these others we've added on.
Mhm.
I'm not so sure about that. So when I ask you, I accept that's your conviction, but that would almost be kind of a question for legal, I guess.
It will be, and we'll take this to Lee once we get it finalized. Once I get all of your input,
Yeah.
I'll take it to Lee and have her go through the whole
I'm
thing.
not trying to opine for anyone one way or the other. I'm just trying to say that we should very carefully square with what the statutes say. And having said that, I'll just leave this thought that this board has been in place, I guess, since college came into being, what, in the early 40s or?
1946.
Okay, 1946, and I'm sure it's probably been tweaked somewhere along the way.
It has.
But it hasn't been tweaked as far as,
We tweaked it. Janine Dot's tweaked it about 3 years ago.
okay.
Yeah.
With regard to these particular points, I don't suppose.
Well,
So-
the current board policy that you have was tweaked by Janine Dot's
Okay,
3 years ago, 4 years
Yeah,
ago,
it was about 3 years ago.
something, and you guys approved it.
again, not
Okay.
taking issue with it here, I'm not, there's nothing to defend here, I'm just simply saying, let's be sure that, number one, we do what the board wants, of course, and the board will express its conviction, but then the second point being, doesn't matter what the board wants, if it doesn't square with statute, we need to square with statute. It's just, that's my observation.
Can I just-
Yeah, go ahead, Janine.
And to answer your question, I gotta actually understand where you're coming from. So a lot of this information was taken directly from our policy, whether it be legal or local policy, which you guys approved. Also, if you see anything in here that says, like Education Code 130.082, so that's directly taken from legislature to let you know, hey, this is what it says. So I just wanted you to just be aware that a lot of this information, probably 95% of it has been pulled directly from our policy or from information from the state directly in
I understand.
the legislature.
If
So,
it's citing statute or pulling from that authority, I get it, no
Right.
discussion. be
but
had.
there is some stuff
If
in
it's
here
pulling
that's
from our policy,
very,
it really doesn't make any difference. It doesn't square with the state statute. So that's what I'm getting at.
Gotcha.
No matter where we got it, it
Yeah.
understand it. Thank you.
So I guess the next step here would be for you to review this, if you don't mind, again, And let's have some additional discussion about what you, if you think that the two absences is too much, then let's talk about it. I mean, that's the whole purpose of this, is to talk about it. And maybe not now, but at the November board meeting, whatever you want to do.
On that topic, and then we can move on.
Yeah.
I don't think we've ever had that problem since I've been on the board. People missing a lot and not being proactive in meetings. I mean, 5 seems like a lot.
Yeah.
But I mean, 2.
Seems like not enough.
Yeah.
I mean, it's too much. That's the
Anyway.
board's decision.
Jerry,
Yes,
Dr. Easton has something to say,
okay,
and I've had something to say. Go
okay.
ahead.
No, I
Good.
was,
Go
I
ahead.
was in favor of what your point in reference to the 2. And we all know that there may be some extenuating circumstances that occur during a year. I think with those extenuating circumstances, they will come in effect to what Mike was talking about. And 2 may be a little strenuous. We look at 3, something like that, then I hear what you're saying and concern. We ask to serve and make a commitment, so that commitment should be honored, and try to make each one as best you possibly can. If there's some extenuating circumstance that pops up, then out of our control, we all understand that. The board reasonable, hey, if we take those in consideration and move forward. Where 2 is tough, but 3, I think that's something that we could possibly look at.
And they're talking about approval of the board. I think once somebody contacts Jerry or Norma, then I'm not gonna be in the meeting tonight. Jerry always tells us that at dinner or when he comes to the meeting. As far as I'm concerned, we don't have to vote on whether Dr. Charlie is gonna be here tonight or not. It's just a matter of common sense that they're not gonna be here. It's an approved absence. And I think anytime it's not an approved absence, if they just negligently do not come without contacting anybody,
Okay.
that's an unapproved absence.
Right.
So I'm with Dr. Easton, I think 2 is a little bit strenuous.
Good. That's what we want to know.
Any other discussion?
Would a Zoom meeting count?
It would. We have to have, for statute says that we have to have a quorum in person. We have to have a quorum in person for the meeting to be a valid meeting. But as long as you can have then anybody above and beyond that can meet Zoom. If you have 5 in person, then you could have 4 that could meet Zoom. The way we've got it set up.
When, for example, if Dr. Reisinger,
He could
he
meet Zoom tonight.
could do it Zoom and it'd be official.
That's right, just like David did last month.
But we have to be
Yeah,
able to
yeah.
see them.
It has to be Zoom. It has to be something that we can see. It can't be a call in by telephone.
Right.
It has to be a Zoom. That's statute. That has to be in that way. But yeah, as long as we got a quorum in person. One other thing I just mentioned, there was something in here about attending the commencement ceremony. That's on page, I think you should, discuss and you should take into consideration. That's on page 15. And one of the recommendations or proposals here was that all trustees must attend at least 1 graduation yearly. That's in the middle of the page. And so again, that's up for discussion. And I think that's something that you need to, make a decision. Is that something that you really think you need to do or not? And we haven't required that in the past, but that's in here now. So something you need to consider. Anybody have any, hopefully you've had a chance to read through this and look at it. What we'd, again, like to do is we'd like to have your input. You can send it to me. You can send it to Norma. If you see something in here that you think that you'd like to have further discussion on, then, there's really not a critical time frame for this. we can always have more discussion and do what we need to do. Every college has one of these. Every community college in Texas has one of these. And there are some of them that are really, really good. I was looking at one over the weekend at another college that I thought was really good. So I think we can really dress this up and do a lot more with it, obviously, than what it looks like here. But, I think we need your input. And then we'll come back again in November, and I'll send it out again a couple of weeks before the November board meeting. And I'll give you, again, whatever thoughts that you may have or suggestions that you may have. And we could put on that either 2 or 3 absences, if you think 3 would be appropriate number, and then we can discuss it at the November board. Does that sound like a plan?
Sounds good.
Okay.
Need a motion.
No, we don't. We're not going to do anything with it.
Come back in November.
We're going to come back in November.
Discussion number 11, discuss the Department of Education program review.
Now, this is something I want to keep on the agenda each month. I think Dr. David, if you don't mind, I know we had a discussion this afternoon. We really haven't gotten anything from them, but David, I'll let you, Philip, I know Philip's on the, yeah, go ahead and.
Well, I don't have any other information. I know that, we're looking at a couple of options as far as recalculations, but we haven't had a chance to talk to DOE about anything. So,
It's not that we haven't had a chance, they haven't given us a chance.
well,
It's a difference.
either way. So,
Well,
Didn't
no,
they
we
say
tried.
after November 1st?
sir,
Didn't last meeting, y'all said it was going to be after November 1st?
They said it was going to be 90 days. And they said it was going to be after
well,
October 1st.
I think they were talking October 1st.
They were going to give us a reply after October 1st, is what they told us.
That's
We
correct.
have not gotten one yet. We have a committee that, once we get some more information from them, we'll get the committee together between now and whenever that happens, and we can talk again. But right now, we're still kind of in the dark. Philip, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, I really think that David carried most of what we talked about. As you said, we've got 2 different options on the table. And we don't know which one of those is going to be the option that we'll recommend until we get the final word from the DOE about exactly what they're looking for. There's just no way to move forward with that part of what we're trying to fix in those old files and what they're going to require of us. And I keep asking every day, because I know Tanya has a good relationship with Dolly, who was that evaluator, that auditor. And I say, have you heard from her yet? And every day when I ask her, she says, no, I haven't heard from her. And so we're kind of stuck right now as far as knowing exactly what we have to do to make this right for the DOE.
And again, was it 90 days that we were told that they have until they have to give us some feedback?
That's correct. Yeah. And at that point, we will know all of the details about everything that they found. And because right now we think we're interpreting what they told us in that very short briefing correctly, but we just don't know for sure. So as soon as we get their full report, we should know exactly what our options are.
And then we'll get the committee back together at that time, whenever that is, and we'll have an open discussion with that committee in terms of moving forward.
And Dr. King, there is a little bit more. We are working to, and I think we've talked about this, the move from AS400 into Colleague put some of this also at risk a little bit, because trying to get the information out of AS400 is very difficult. So we have made some great progress in getting the information out of AS400 already, so that we will be ready for whatever we have to do moving forward when we get that report. So already we've got folks in our financial aid office reviewing some of the things that they said were wrong. And so they're just going back and recalculating some of that. So we're already making some strides, at least doing sort of a pilot project on how we might be able to move forward.
But we haven't spent any money to
No.
hire one to help us. That's
Well, the only money that we have spent, there has been a little bit of extra overtime for Colette, who has been working part-time for us for quite some time, as I understand it. And so we've had her on a few additional projects as far as pulling that information out of AS400. And so we have paid a little bit of overtime, but it's not a large amount of money.
Anybody have any questions?
Dr. Cornell, certainly you for the steps.
I'm sorry, trustee Monk. I cannot hear you. I apologize. My sound is all the way up, but I can't hear you.
Not working. I'm on. It'll hold. I'll ask you another time.
Okay.
You want to ask me and let me ask him? Can you hear me, Philip?
I can hear you just fine, Dr. King.
Just going to say compliments to
Okay.
Dr. Cornell's team for doing what can to distract, but I really was curious, knowing that the old mainframe has issues. Have we, is it fully backed up and it's everything now moved to colleague with regard to records because of all the retention issues? You mentioned it to us in our meeting, and I think quite a bit later found that frightening to hear that you might not be able to retrieve some stuff. Is that pretty well resolved at this point?
I think the question, Philip, is that have we resolved? And I think the answer is probably no, but have we resolved the issue of retrieving the information? We don't even know what information we're going to be asked to retrieve yet.
In answer to that question, no, we have not resolved that. There were lots of breakdowns during those years, some of them on our end, some of them on the Department of Education's end in the software that they were letting colleges use at that time. So I am not certain at all at this point that we can get to all the information they want. Now, Dr. King and I met with Mr. Farelli. I'm sorry, Mr. Farelli, while we were out in San Diego for the ACCT conference. And he actually had some very good ideas, and we may be able to use that company for some part of this as well. But one thing he suggested was that we can get some of that information back through a formal request of DOE. And so we can't get all of it because things like our supplemental education opportunity grants, those were probably not given to the DOE at that point, and they probably should have been. But we can get a vast majority of what we sent into the DOE that we based our decisions on as far as how much aid to give to a student. But I can't guarantee you that we can find everything at this point.
Do you know other information regarding history and records is at risk because of that? I think what I'm trying to say is that can turn into a really big deal, and if there's any steps we can take to extract and preserve, not necessarily formatted for DOE, but simply so that we can put our hands on it, wherever it is that it would move to. But I don't know how all it works here, but it would sure be an important thing to do.
I think that's what we're doing. That's what we're currently doing. That's what we're trying to do currently. Yeah, it's there. The information is there, and we're trying to extract that information now to where it's going to be available.
You're not worried about losing it.
No, not. We're worried about finding it.
Yeah, more worried about finding the information than losing anything.
Information is there. According to Farelli, Mr. Farelli, who we've met with in San Diego, the DOE has it. It's a matter of getting it back from them and getting it to you. And so there's a lot more. I think we're learning as we go along this process and talking to several different colleges about it.
And Dr. King, one thing I've learned since that point is we may not have sent all the information into the DOE as we should have back in those days. So anything we didn't send to them, they will not have to send us back. So that's what we'll have to go through and be able to find. So if we didn't send it to them, they can't give it back to us.
And as it was mentioned earlier, the DOE had a breakdown as well.
Correct.
And so we're talking about 2018, 17. This was a problem year for them as well. They were going through a transition in terms of their IT people. And we're working. Thank you, Dr. Parnell.
Thank you, sir.
Anybody have any other questions?
I got one question.
Okay.
We had talked about being a little proactive and coming up with our own plan of action to answer what they've said. In other words, the last time, remember, it was 5 picked out at random, and we addressed those 5, and that was our extent of our audit, and it was accepted. Is that still something we're gonna try to do
That's what
before
we're
we
trying
just
to-
sit back and wait, so you gotta go through 3 years of records?
Absolutely, and absolutely, but we just need to hear back from them now. We haven't heard back from them since the day one. And so we need to hear back from them so that we can get back to them with our proposal of what we would like to do. And that was one of the things about Forelli, is that's what they do as well. They're specialists in financial aid. They're specialists in doing this for other colleges. They've done it for other colleges. So we're depending upon eventually working with Forelli to be able to help us develop a proposal and a plan to give back to them to be able to do different. And they use, I think it was 30 records in 2015. So that would be great. We'd like to use 30 records if we can do that.
All right, let's see, we're looking at consider discuss personnel updates.
It's personnel updates or resignations, retirements, new hires and reclassifications. Anybody have any questions about any of those? If not, we would ask for, I'll just mention, I think most of you knew that Brett retired. I think it was in here. We had his retirement party last Friday, I think it was. And we're in the process of replacing him. It's going to be difficult. That's a big job. And it's going to be a difficult job to find the right person, but we're going to go through that process to do that. And actually, Brett didn't have a lot of choice in terms of that. So we're going to miss him, but we're going to move forward and do what we need to do. The vice presidents are meeting with all the IT direct reports every week to keep up with what they're doing, make sure they don't need any help, to work with them as well. So we think we have a plan for right now for the next month or two to where we can keep going, but we'll be in the process of trying. Need approval for that.
I hear a motion to approve the personnel report. It's now time to enter into an executive session. We hear a motion to do that. Ron, Steve. Thank you.
Yeah, the Zoom, because this is an executive session, the Zoom public meeting will now stop.